Have you ever thought that being nice is the best way to lead? You might be surprised to learn that it could actually be hurting your leadership. Studies show that 60% of employees feel their leaders are too nice, and this can lead to major issues in the workplace. When leaders focus only on being liked, they risk losing respect and authority. Here's a shocking fact. Research from the University of California found that overly nice leaders are 33% less effective at motivating their teams. This means that kindness, when taken too far, can turn into a barrier to success. It's time to rethink what it means to be a leader. In this video, we'll dive deep into how being too nice can trap you in a cycle of indecision and missed opportunities. We'll explore unique strategies to balance kindness with authority. You'll discover how to embrace discomfort, face conflict head-on, and make decisive choices without losing your humanity. Get ready to transform your leadership style from nice to effective. Let's unlock the true potential of your leadership. Chapter 1. The nice trap. When kindness becomes weakness, many leaders believe being nice is the key to building strong teams. But kindness, when overdone, can turn into a weakness. There's a fine line between being approachable and being a pushover. Leaders who focus too much on being liked often find their authority slipping away. Here's the truth. Constantly aiming to please everyone isn't leadership, it's avoidance. Studies show that 48% of employees lose respect for a leader who avoids difficult decisions. Harvard Business Review, 2016. When you prioritize niceness over tough calls, your team notices. This can result in blurred boundaries, unclear goals, and a lack of accountability. Leadership is about making the hard choices, not always the popular ones. As author Adam Grant puts it in Give and Take, nice leaders may finish last in power, but first in relationships. However, relationships alone won't move your team forward if you can't enforce rules or set clear expectations. The strategy here is simple. Be kind, but firm. Show empathy, but also make sure you're holding people accountable. Setting clear boundaries and enforcing them consistently builds respect. Without boundaries, kindness can be mistaken for weakness. Remember, the best leaders are both compassionate and decisive. Chapter 2. The hidden costs of always saying yes. Being too nice often means saying yes too often. It might seem harmless, but the ripple effect can be damaging. When leaders constantly agree to every request, they can easily stretch themselves and their team too thin. This leads to lower productivity and burnout. In fact, studies show that leaders who struggle with saying no are 25% more likely to experience high levels of stress. American Psychological Association, 2020. This happens because the pressure to please everyone increases, while efficiency decreases. Overcommitting also means you might drop the ball on important tasks. Saying yes too much can also harm decision-making. Teams need leaders who make choices based on what's best for the organization, not based on avoiding conflict or disappointment. In Dare to Lead, Brené Brown emphasizes that clear is kind. Unclear is unkind. This means setting limits and giving clear direction is more effective than trying to please everyone. The strategy? Master the art of the thoughtful no. Saying no doesn't make you a bad leader, it makes you a focused one. Practice delivering your no with empathy and explanation. For instance, instead of saying, "I can't," say, "I'd love to help, but our priority right now is project. Let's revisit this later." This keeps the lines of communication open while maintaining your focus. Chapter 3. Balancing empathy and authority. One of the most challenging aspects of leadership is finding the right balance between empathy and authority. Too much empathy, and you risk becoming too lenient. Too much authority, and you can seem cold or out of touch. But the most effective leaders find a middle ground. Empathy is important because it fosters trust. A Gallup poll found that employees who feel their leaders are empathetic are 74% more likely to stay with their companies longer. Yet, empathy should not override your need to lead with strength and make tough decisions. In Leaders Eat Last, Simon Sinek writes, "Leadership is not about being in charge. It is about taking care of those in your charge." This means leaders must care for their teams but also create an environment where they can thrive. even if it requires making hard choices. The strategy here is to lead with empathy but act with authority. Listen to your team's concerns, but don't shy away from making decisions that might be difficult. One way to do this is by being transparent about your thought process. Explain why you're making a tough call, showing that you understand its impact, but you're doing what's necessary for the greater good. For example, if you need to cut back on a project, acknowledge the effort your team has put in, and explain why the change is important. This way, they feel heard, but they also see you as a strong, decisive leader. If you're finding these insights helpful, consider subscribing for more tips on effective leadership. Chapter 4. The power of strategic discomfort. It's human nature to avoid discomfort. As leaders, we often think it's our job to keep everyone happy. But here's the catch: without a little discomfort, teams can stagnate. Strategic discomfort is what pushes people to grow, innovate, and reach new heights. A study from the University of Chicago found that people perform better under mild stress or discomfort because it keeps them alert and engaged. Constantly smoothing over rough patches doesn't do anyone any favors. In fact, avoiding these moments might rob your team of valuable growth opportunities. In The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, Patrick Lencioni talks about the importance of embracing conflict and discomfort as tools for team development. Great teams do not hold back with one another. They engage in unfiltered conflict around ideas, he says. If everyone's too nice, creativity and honest feedback take a backseat. So, how can you use discomfort to your advantage? Challenge your team to think critically and solve problems independently. Ask tough questions that require deeper thinking, and don't always rush to offer a solution. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but it's these moments that spark real growth and innovation. The next time there's a tough situation or decision to be made, resist the urge to make everything comfortable. Encourage your team to embrace the discomfort and work through it. In the long run, this strategy fosters resilience, problem-solving skills, and higher performance. Chapter 5. How fear of conflict undermines trust. Many leaders fear conflict, believing that avoiding it will keep the peace. But avoiding conflict can actually undermine trust and weaken your leadership. When issues go unaddressed, tensions simmer under the surface, and trust in leadership begins to erode. Conflict, when managed well, can actually be a tool for building trust. Research by CPP Global found that 85% of employees experience conflict at work, yet only 31% feel their managers handle it well. Avoiding conflict doesn't eliminate the tension, it only delays the inevitable. Leaders who are too nice often avoid tough conversations, but this can lead to larger problems down the line. In Crucial Conversations, authors Carrie Patterson and Joseph Grenny emphasize that the mistake most of us make in our crucial conversations is we believe we have to choose between being honest and being kind. The truth is, you can be both. Honest conversations, even when difficult, build stronger, more trusting teams. So, what's the strategy here? Don't shy away from conflict. Face it with empathy and honesty. When there's an issue, address it head-on, but with compassion. Instead of avoiding the conversation, start by listening to understand the other person's perspective. Then, be clear about your expectations or concerns. This doesn't mean being harsh, but it does mean being direct. Teams will trust you more when they know you won't sweep problems under the rug. Confronting issues early prevents them from growing into bigger conflicts and shows your team that you care enough to deal with challenges. Chapter 6. Becoming decisive without losing your humanity. Making tough decisions is part of leadership, but doing so without losing your humanity is the real challenge. It's easy to mistake decisiveness for coldness, but great leaders know how to make strong decisions while remaining empathetic. Being decisive isn't about making quick calls with no regard for others. It's about weighing your options and moving forward confidently, even when it's uncomfortable. According to a study by McKinsey, organizations with decisive leaders are 20% more likely to have high-performing teams. Yet, there's a balance to strike. In Radical Candor, Kim Scott argues that great leaders care personally and challenge directly. It's this balance that makes the difference. You need to care about your team's well-being while also pushing them to succeed. Being too nice can lead to indecision, which can frustrate your team and slow progress. The strategy? Develop the skill of empathetic decisiveness. This means making decisions with the team's best interest in mind but without sacrificing the forward momentum of the organization. When you make a tough call, explain the reasoning behind it. Show your team that you've considered their input but that, ultimately, the decision is what's best for the group. For example, if you need to cut a project or shift priorities, be transparent about why the decision is being made. Acknowledge the work that went into it, but stand firm in your choice. Your team will respect your ability to make decisions, especially when they see that you're doing so thoughtfully and with their well-being in mind. In short, being decisive doesn't mean you have to be cold or distant. It means being clear, confident, and compassionate in your approach. If you enjoyed this content and want to keep improving your leadership skills, don't forget to subscribe for more valuable insights.